Kini kami bawakan siaran langsung Rapat Umum Hari Kebangsaan dari Pusat Budaya Universiti. Menteri Negara Kanan Lawrence Wong, Menteri Negara Halimah Yacob dan Menteri Heng Swee Keat akan menyampaikan ucapan mereka terlebih dahulu. Perdana Menteri akan menyampaikan ucapannya dalam bahasa Melayu, Mandarin dan Inggeris pada 8 malam.
பல்கலைக்கழக கலாச்சார நிலையத்திலிருந்து தேசிய தின கூட்டத்தின் நேரடி ஒளிபரப்பை இப்போது காணலாம். மூத்த துணை அமைச்சர் திரு லாரன்ஸ் வாங், துணை அமைச்சர் திருவாட்டி ஹலிமா யாக்கோப், அமைச்சர் திரு ஹெங் ஸ்வீ கியட் ஆகியோர் முதலில் உரையாற்றுவர். இரவு 8 மணிக்கு பிரதமர் திரு லீ சியன் லூங் மலாய், மேண்ட்ரின், ஆங்கில மொழிகளில் பேசுவார்.
我们现在从国大文化中心为您现场直播国庆群众大会。高级政务部长黄循才、政务部长哈利玛和部长王瑞杰首先将发表演讲。李显龙总理将在8点整发表他的马来语、华语和英语演讲。
We are now bringing you a live telecast of the National Day Rally from the University Cultural Centre. Senior Minister of State Lawrence Wong, Minister of State Halimah Yacob and Minister Heng Swee Keat will be delivering their speeches first. Prime Minister Lii Hsien Loong will deliver his Malay, Mandarin and English speeches at 8 p.m.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister.
Friends and fellow Singaporeans, a very good evening to you all. I've made a few changes to this year's National Day Rally format. First, the date is a little bit later than usual because I didn't want to clash with Hari Raya Aidilfitri. But secondly, and more significantly, I've changed the format. I've invited 3 of my younger cabinet colleagues to speak to you this evening, and I will speak to you after the break. Let me explain to you why I'm doing this. Singapore is in transition. Last year, I brought new ministers onto my team, so that we'd have fresh people, fresh voices, and the best team to serve Singapore. Recently, I appointed Mr. Heng Swee Keat to lead a group to take a fresh look at where we are going and what we need to change, to look beyond the immediate to the longer-term future, to engage Singaporeans in this national conversation. So Swee Keat and the younger ministers are just getting started on this task, and tonight I thought it would be useful to give Swee Keat, Lawrence Wong and Halimah Yacob a chance to speak to you, and to give you a chance to hear them. There will be others also who will be involved in this effort, and maybe in future rallies I will be able to invite them to speak to you too. But meanwhile, I'll sit in the audience for a change and hear the speeches. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. May we now invite Senior Minister of State, Ministry of Education and Ministry of Information, Communications and the Arts, Mr. Lawrence Wong, to address us. Mr. Wong will be speaking in English and Mandarin. Mr. Wong, please.
Prime Minister, colleagues, friends and fellow Singaporeans. On the 9th of August this year, I joined our youths at the Scape Youth Park to celebrate our nation's birthday. I missed out on the mass displays and fireworks at the parade. but there was just as much energy at the youth event, especially when our young Singaporeans all stood together to say the pledge and to reaffirm their commitment to the nation. The pledge resonates strongly with all of us. Maybe it's because we grew up reciting it in school. But at a basic level, it's an expression of our values and ideals. It's a promise that every Singaporean, whatever our race, language, or religion, will strive to achieve happiness, prosperity, and progress for all. Singapore is still a work in progress, but we have come far in achieving these ideals. Tonight, I want to talk about achieving happiness by creating opportunities, enhancing the quality of life, and building strong communities. We have invested in our people and tried to give every child the best possible head start. Children today grow up with far more opportunities than their parents. In schools, they take part in many enrichment programs and activities in the arts, music, and sports. Some of you may know that I play the guitar. Or when I was in college, I used to go busking just to earn some extra money. But I had no formal lessons, and I had to learn how to play myself. I wish I were back in school, because at Bendemeer Primary, all students are taught not only the guitar, but also the keyboard and the xylophone. I recently got the chance to catch the students in action. And as you can see, they are really enjoying themselves. One of them said that without this program in school, he would not have had the chance to learn a musical instrument. But now, he's discovered his love for music and has in turn become more confident. Beyond our schools, we are also doing more at the ITE, polytechnics, and universities to develop the talents of each and every student. I've spoken to many young Singaporeans, and I know they have a great desire to attend university. So over the past few months, my colleagues and I have been looking at how we can expand university places for Singaporeans. We've heard you, and we are taking action. We will launch new degree programs. They will have a strong applied focus and close links with industry. And the Prime Minister will elaborate on this later in his speech. A world-class education will enable our youth to achieve success in the global economy. But we are also looking to enhance the quality of life. That's why we are investing in the arts, culture, and sports. These are important areas for us. They provide platforms for leisure, for expression, and self-improvement. As a young student, this was back in the 80s, I used to read reports of Singapore being dull, boring, and sterile. Perhaps some of you remember reading those reports too. Today, words like fun, hip, and exciting are better used to describe us. We have an exciting calendar of arts and cultural performances and a full schedule of sports events for all to enjoy. The new Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth, or MCCY, will continue to build on this to further strengthen Singapore as a center for the arts, culture, and sports. This will not only enhance Singapore's dynamism, but also add color and diversity to our lives. So I urge everyone to participate actively. Let me say a few words in Mandarin on the new ministry and some of its priorities. 大家晚上好.
Good evening, fellow Singaporeans. The new Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth will be set up in November. One key priority will be to promote arts and culture. And in particular, the ministry will focus on traditional arts and ethnic culture. The Chinese community has been a tireless promoter of culture and arts over the years and has helped to build a vibrant arts scene. Through its efforts, the community has nurtured many artistic talents, as well as enriched our lives. The government has formulated a strategy to promote traditional culture and arts, and will work closely with the community to strengthen traditional arts. The Chinese community values the cultural heritage and hopes that our younger generation will continue to appreciate traditional arts and preserve the cultural roots. This is also government's goal. Our society is changing rapidly. We have to work harder to preserve and promote traditional values such as respect for elders, sincerity, loyalty to country, a sense of gratitude. These values have lasting significance and help to strengthen social harmony and unity. Promoting traditional values is an important and long-term mission. I hope that the people and government can work together to foster a strong sense of culture and values. Thank you.
请让我继续用英语发言。
Let me continue in English.
Besides creating opportunities and improving the quality of life, it's also important to build strong communities for happiness. I once asked a friend, he's from Bhutan, for his views on happiness. And he cited a scholar from his country who said, and I quote, "There's no such thing as personal happiness. Happiness is 100% relational." In other words, our happiness is linked to the people around us, our friends, our family, and our neighbors. And in fact, many studies show that personal happiness depends on our interactions with the people in the community. This is more important than other factors like how much we earn or how educated we are. Unfortunately today, despite emails and social media, we somehow feel less connected socially. It is a paradox of modern living, not just in Singapore, but also in cities around the world. I'm sure many of us can relate to this. When I was growing up, I remember the strong bonds between neighbors in our HDB estate. When one was in trouble, the others would pitch in to help. Once, when my family was locked out of our house, our neighbors all rallied to our side. They brought spare keys to try and open the door, and a huge saw to cut through our padlock. One brave man even offered to climb through our balcony window to help us get in. And I should tell you that we lived on the 21st floor. So who says Singaporeans are kiasi? Today, you can still see neighbors greeting and helping one another in the HDB estates. But many feel that we have somehow lost a bit of the kampong spirit. So one of my priorities at MCCY is to strengthen community bonds and to widen and deepen the linkages among our people. We want to encourage Singaporeans to come forward for a shared purpose. Our role will be to empower, facilitate, and support initiatives from the ground. So if there's something you want to do for the community, if you need resources and information, we will do our best to support you. I've talked about the pledge, the ideals in the pledge, and what the government can and will do to realize these ideals. But the most important factor is not the government. Rather, it is us, we the people, we the citizens of Singapore. In the last few decades, we have achieved much. But these achievements have not been built on the back of one individual or even one community. They have been achieved through our collective efforts. So whatever our race, language, or religion, we must continue to work together to overcome the challenges ahead, achieve our goals, and build a stronger Singapore. I feel a sense of optimism whenever I meet and talk to young Singaporeans. Many are actively involved in civic causes and community projects. Like the group of young Singaporeans who felt that more needed to be done about graciousness on public transport. So they got together and they started a movement called Stand Up for Our Singapore. You can see them here, all 300 of them mobilizing. They traveled from train to train, they distributed badges and flyers, and they encouraged commuters to give up their seats to those who needed it more. And there are many others like that, who go out to help the aged, the handicapped, and the less fortunate, or who have set up their own organizations to advance causes they feel strongly about. And perhaps there's a lesson to be drawn from all this. And that is, happiness lies in our hands. We can choose to be happy when we reach out to others, when we do something worthwhile, when we serve a higher calling and purpose. So let us all participate actively in shaping our nation's future and building the Singapore we want. This is the spirit that will bind us together in spite of our differences. This is the spirit that will make us strong and help us reach further and higher as a nation. For alone, we can do little, but together, there is little we cannot do. Let's all work to achieve happiness, prosperity, and progress for our nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. May we now invite Minister of State, Ministry of Community Development, Youth and Sports, Madam Halimah Yacob. She will address us in Malay first, then in English. Madam Halimah, please.
Good evening, selamat petang, Tajia Wan San Hao, Vanakkam. Let me say a few words in Malay first before I proceed with my English speech. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, izinkan saya bermula
Ladies and gentlemen,
dengan mengucapkan selamat
allow me
Hari Kebangsaan dan selamat Hari Raya
to start by saying
Aidilfitri.
Happy National Day and Selamat Hari Raya.
Berkekalkan modal yang dinamakan tekad.
Bestowed with virtues like perseverance, working together, and hard work, our Malay Muslim community has made substantial progress in line with national prosperity. Many of our Malay children have achieved success in the area of education. Many of us in the community have also attained good jobs and income. For example, the achievement by Adil Hakim Muhammad Rafi, who is the recipient of the President's Scholarship, which is the highest scholarship in the country, proves that our community is just as educated, talented, and capable as anyone else. Adil's success also demonstrates how Malay Muslim children are more confident in attaining a higher level of success in their respective fields. Yet, as our society moves forward, the world is rapidly changing as well. This change is driven by technological advances and intense competition among countries. These global changes also affect Singapore and consequently our community. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that we need to prepare and motivate ourselves to greater heights in the 3 Ps, that is education, employment, and communication or relationship in the family. The fact is we are a modern and progressive community. However, we have not yet fulfilled our true potential. The truth is, our community has many strengths. For example, as a society, we are highly creative, which sectors like IT, communications, and fashion need. You would be familiar with the fashion designer, Ashley Isham. He is a well-known designer in London. Ashley provides luxury clothes for many famous women, proving that we are able to compete internationally. Another asset of our community is that we have a lot of young energy. We must attract and develop the potential of our youth. Why? Because they can play a more important role in building our community. In conclusion, to move forward, all parties in society need to have determination, passion, and commitment to empower our community's identity. We need to give full attention and do not be wary of working hard for the common good of all. Ladies and gentlemen, I am confident under the system of meritocracy and capitalizing on our hard work, the Malay Muslim community will be able to climb the ladder of success even higher. Thank you.
Fellow Singaporeans, every year on National Day, I ask myself what it means to be a Singaporean. Is this a place where we only recognize the successful and the rich, or do we give opportunities for every man and every woman? Do we give people second chances, or do we write them off as failures just because they take the road less traveled? Singapore has not departed from the principles upon which it was founded. It continues to give opportunities to everyone, provided they are prepared to work hard. Take Ms. Chong Hui Sien, my resident in Bukit Batok East, who studied at a neighborhood school, the Yusof Ishak Secondary School. She had scored only 151 points for her PSLE and was posted to the normal technical stream. She then proceeded to ITE College East and then to Ngee Ann Polytechnic. She did well, won prestigious awards, and got into NTU to do accountancy. In her 3rd year at NTU now, she will soon be starting lessons at Schönhoping University in Sweden on a 5-month attachment program. Hui Sien has been actively involved in community service so as to give back to society. I am indeed very proud of Hui Sien. Fellow Singaporeans, we were poor when we became independent in 1965. Many of us remember the muddy roads, the rickety buses, we used to call them bone shakers, and the chalky blackboards in the classroom. After independence, Singapore did many things that others had not even dreamt of doing. We welcome foreign investments. For instance, while others shunned them for nationalist reasons, we dreamt big. We gave people hope. We built a remarkable society. Still, 47 years since independence, we face many challenges. We have to continue dreaming big, give people hope, build an even more inclusive and remarkable society. We have to ensure that a widening income gap does not make it harder for able but poor people to do well. The Prime Minister, in his National Day message, spoke of a fair and just society with opportunities for all, an inclusive society with a heart. Our meritocratic system must provide opportunities for all, regardless of their background, to pursue their dreams. Every Singaporean must get the proper education and training to succeed. Every talent, not just the purely academic, must be nurtured. We must also help those who, due to personal circumstances or through no fault of their own, are unable to help themselves. Maintaining social mobility in a mature economy will be a challenge. But we must persevere to help low-income families. Failure to do so will lead to social segregation and instability. Once on a public holiday, I took a taxi to an event. The taxi driver told me that his goal was to make sure that his two sons got into university because he wanted them to have a better life. He worked hard and he spent a significant portion of his income that he shared with me to provide tuition to his two sons. He had missed the boat himself, but was determined that his sons would not. In the year I have been at MCYS, I have visited many VWOs. I have been inspired by their dedication. They have kept hope alive among the most disadvantaged of families. I have met many of the families too, and I am inspired by their tenacity. We tend to think the needy are helpless and we must help to solve all their problems. We are wrong. Sometimes we can do more harm than good by not respecting their desire for dignity. For example, I know an old lady who collects old newspapers in my constituency. I had asked my RC umpteen times to ask her whether she needed financial help, and her answer was always no. I had personally asked her also, Auntie, would you need some help? Of course, in the colloquial Malay language and a little bit of Hokkien. And her answer was still an emphatic no. I have learned to respect her wishes and her desire for pride and control over her own life. But for those who need help, we are committed to doing more for them. We will continue to improve our approaches, for not all are able to access the opportunities available. Some families need dedicated support and intervention. We are putting in more resources to strengthen our social services sector. But the government cannot walk alone in doing this. It needs to partner social service agencies to better understand the needs of poor families and develop relevant services for them. We also need community support, particularly among our youth. You may have heard of Food Bank Singapore, a not-for-profit organization started by a brother and sister team, 33-year-old Nicholas and 34-year-old Nicole Ng. Food Bank links people in need with companies and individuals with excess food to give away. Caring Singaporeans looking out for one another is the most powerful individual expression of the values of our nation. Let me conclude, fellow Singaporeans, by sharing with you the story of 27-year-old Norul Shika Muhammad Taha. Norul was born with spinal muscular atrophy, and she is one of our Paralympians. She is one of the best boccia players in the world. In case you're wondering what is boccia, boccia is a form of lawn bowling. She has won several awards including coming in first at the 2011 National Disability League. Nurul has also excelled in her studies. She studied at Raffles Girls' School and then she went on to National Junior College, graduating with a Bachelor of Accountancy degree from SMU. She's now working in IRAS. Nurul and Hui Xian represent the true Singapore spirit that we must value, nurture, and grow. Fellow Singaporeans, we have a compelling vision to build a democratic society based on justice and equality, as our pledge says. But to better achieve this vision, everyone has to play a part. None of us is a passive bystander. None of us can be a mere spectator. We are all co-creators of our common future. Thank you. Let me wish everyone a very happy National Day. Selamat Hari Kebangsaan. Kuo Ching Chie Kuai Le. Desia Dinal Waltakel. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Halima. Minister for Education, Mr. Heng Swee Keat, will address us now. Mr. Heng will be speaking in Mandarin and then English. May we invite the Minister on stage now.
Dear fellow Singaporeans, it is an honor for me to say a few words this evening. Let me start in Mandarin. 亲爱的同胞，晚上好。
My fellow citizens, good evening.
我参加了几所学校
Recently, I went to several school anniversary celebrations. These schools have long histories. Some are over 100 years old.
10年树木
There is a Chinese saying, it takes 10 years to grow trees, 100 years to nurture people. This shows that nurturing talent takes time and commitment.
一个国家的建设
Of course, building a nation
长的时间。
requires even more time and effort.
我国是个年轻的国家，
We are a young nation.
虽然我们将面临新的
Although there will be new challenges
国人的
ahead,
未来也有不
our
同的
people with diverse hopes
但
and aspirations, but
只要我们齐
I
心协
deeply
力
believe that if we work
创造
together
正确的社会发展方针，
and make the right
我们的
choice
前途
in
将是一
developing
片光明的
the right plans for social development, we will have a bright future.
着重的
Educators seek to inculcate morals, knowledge, physical health, social skills, artistic sense. These aspects help us achieve balanced and holistic development of our children.
社会发展
Similarly, we should pursue balanced development in these 5 areas for our Singapore community in order to build a strong
在发展
society.
经济的同时，
In achieving
也
economic
要照
growth,
顾弱势群
we have to care for the weak and vulnerable members of our society
最温馨、
so that we will ensure Singapore will remain our kindest and best unique
我们
home.
将集思广益，
In the next few months,
耐
we
心
will engage all
大家对
Singaporeans
新加坡的愿望。
in a national conversation.
我恳请大
We
家
will listen patiently
踊跃地参与
to their wishes and
对象
aspirations.
全国性的对
I'd like to urge everyone to help us and to take part in this national conversation. Thank you.
Many people have asked me what it is like to be education minister. Let me share a story. Last June, a few days after I became minister, a parent wrote to me, angry that his son was given homework during the school holiday. Then another was upset that his son was not given homework. One wanted his son to excel to get ahead, the other to relax and enjoy the vacation. So it's not easy to be education minister. But I'll do my best. Earlier this year, I had breakfast with a group of students at King Cheng School. I asked what their hopes and dreams were. Indeed, each time I meet students, I ask this question. Our young have big and interesting dreams. They want to have jobs that I have never heard of before, such as character directors and texture artists in the animation industry. They want to create the next Star Wars. I met a group of NUS students on an entrepreneurship program in Beijing. They were awed by the vast market and wanted to create the next big thing in China. I'm also very heartened to have met many people, young and old, who volunteer their time to make life better for others. But I also have my concerns. An elderly resident, Mr. Lim, urged me, Mr. Heng, we will need an elder care facility here. We'll need it later, but please build it now, before too many people object. His concerns were not misplaced. A young man actually asked me to relocate an entire school because it was too noisy. So some of these encounters make me worry. Some lift my spirit. But each raises an important question about our future. In the fight for space, will our elderly be pushed out? Will our young succeed here, or will they have to emigrate? Will our citizens seek to contribute, or will they just advance their own interest? When I was young, most Singaporeans were poor. Our goal was to have food on the table. It was simply about survival. Today, Singaporeans have diverse needs and wants. Many have more choices, and only a deep sense of belonging will anchor them here. We each seek to have more space, but we are a small island. So how do we achieve a consensus, turn diversity into strength, harness our idealism, and make the right choices together? We need a national conversation about our Singapore. This national conversation will first and foremost be about putting Singaporeans at the heart of our concerns. It will be an opportunity for Singaporeans to come together and ask, what matters most? Where do we want to go as a country, as a people? Many Singaporeans have since shared their views, and I find them inspiring. I recently had a dialogue with a group of students. They want a caring and gracious Singapore. One student, Jolene, puts it well. She wants a gracious Singapore where we no longer need signs on MRT trains telling us to give up our seats for the elderly, because it is instinctively Singaporean to do so. And she adds, when it rains, we share our umbrellas with anyone spontaneously. In the conversation about our Singapore, we'll need to reaffirm, recalibrate, and refresh. First, reaffirm what is good and still relevant, especially where the fundamentals are concerned. As one resident told me, hey, Mr. Heng, change when we have to change, but please don't change for the sake of change. I fully agree. Our society must be anchored by core values and a constancy of purpose. Second, we must ask ourselves, what has changed, and recalibrate accordingly. As in sailing, we may have set off in the right direction. But when the winds change, we need to adjust our course. For instance, we do have great strength in some areas, but strengths overdone can become weaknesses. Our focus on grades and achievements do help maintain standards, but overdone comes at the expense of a holistic education, a happier childhood, and quality time with parents. Extreme meritocracy and competition can lead to a winner-take-all society where the winners think little of others. We need to restore a balance to the hard-nosed material pragmatism. As Gandhi put it, we must not have commerce without morality, science without humanity, and knowledge without character. Third, we must refresh and innovate. Look afresh at developments and new evidence, and be bold in charting new direction. Over the years, MOE has been studying the impact of preschool. Our more recent evaluation showed that preschool years are important for children to learn languages and social skills. We must invest more in preschool, and PM will touch on this later. The national conversation that we will have will be as inclusive as possible. We will engage Singaporeans from all walks of life through multiple channels. We will seek out the views of as many people as possible, including those who normally stay silent. All of you have stayed very silent since I started speaking. Thank you very much, but please speak up later. This will allow us to better appreciate each other's concerns, hopes, and aspirations. Our conversation must be grounded in reason, mutual respect, and an attitude of give and take. Singapore has succeeded so far because our own personal stories have been woven into the big Singapore story in a rich and coherent tapestry. As Mr. Kong Yew Kin put on my Facebook recently, and I quote, "It will be great to have a collage of the dream boards of every Singaporean which will make up the Singapore dream." Indeed, when we pursue a common purpose, our individual dreams come alive. When an individual succeeds, the rest of us benefit from that success. My fellow Singaporeans, we have an exciting journey ahead. I urge you to take part in this national conversation about our Singapore. Together, we can make Singapore our home. A home of hope, a home of heart, a home we all love. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister.
Good evening again. You have heard from Lawrence, Halimah, and Swee Kiat. Each one has shared his thoughts and his dreams for Singapore. I hope they've given you a sense of their thinking, and you have also got a feel for their personalities and the way they think. So I'll now share my views on where we should go, how we should get there. As usual, in Malay first, then in Chinese, then in English. Saudara-saudari sekalian.
Ladies and gentlemen, first I would like to wish all Muslims Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri.
Rapat saya tahun ini lewat sedikit.
This year, I'm holding my rally a little later than usual because of Hari Raya.
Masih ingat tahun lalu saya menyentuh
You might still remember last year I touched on some of the challenges of our Malay Muslim community and spoke about
tentang projek Gelang Serai.
the Wisma Gelang Serai project.
Gambar dia Wisma Gelang Serai yang kita cadangkan.
This is the picture
Saya gembira
of Wisma Gelang Serai. I am glad that the project is progressing smoothly and being well received by the community. A design competition for the building will be called soon.
Wisma Gelang Serai. Ambillah peluang ini untuk
Do take this opportunity to submit your ideas for the project.
malam ini saya ingin bercakap tentang
Tonight, I want to talk about where Singapore, the country that we all love, is heading and how the Malay Muslim community has progressed with Singapore. I'm sure that you want your children and grandchildren to thrive.
tetapi sebelum itu saya rasa
But before that,
uraikan masalah
I feel we must tackle our first problem.
adakah kita ada cukup anak?
Will we have enough children to form our next generation?
Jawapannya anda semua sudah tahu.
You know the answer.
Kadar kesuburan kita
Our birth rates are declining.
orang Melayu juga.
The Malays used to have many children,
Sekarang kadarnya juga menurun.
but now Malay birth rates are declining too.
Kita tidak hanya berpeluk.
But we will not be passive.
Pemerintah akan cuba sedaya upaya
The government will do what it can to encourage couples to marry and have babies.
anak. Macam mana caranya saya akan terangkan
How? I will explain more in my English speech.
pendek kata. Saya berharap
But in brief,
daripada anda
I hope to hear
banyak paluan kompang.
more sounds of the Kompang celebrations and lusty babies crying from you soon.
Saya percaya kita semua
I believe all of us want Singapore to remain the best home for our families.
kita mau anak-anak dan cucu cicit kita selesa.
We want our children and grandchildren to live comfortably here and realize their dreams.
Masyarakat penyayang,
We want a caring
sebuah bangsa
and compassionate society, an open city with a strong Singaporean spirit,
bilang kaum.
a multiracial society, maintaining harmony between the ethnic groups. To achieve all these goals, we must continue our multiracial approach to national challenges.
Percaya, anda semua tahu
You must know through television, internet, or newspapers
bagaimana politik dan masyarakat
how politics and society are often organized by race in other countries.
mereka lihat
Every issue is seen and fought
atas
in
kepentingan kaum.
along racial terms,
Mana kaum yang untung dan
which race gains and which loses.
kita jangan sekali-kali biarkan
We should
berlaku.
never allow this to happen in Singapore.
Pada masa yang sama, marilah kita
At the same time, let us continue our efforts to uplift our Malay Muslim community
maju bersama.
so that we can progress together as one society.
Memang tidak boleh disangkal lagi anda sudah
It is hard to imagine the great strides that you have made since independence.
para belia anda
Now your young people,
bangsa
which is our hope for the future,
prestasi yang baik.
are doing very well.
Lebih ramai kini mengikut jejak langkah
More now are following
yang berjaya.
the footsteps of successful community leaders like the late Rizwan Jafir, who passed away last year.
Rizwan menyumbang kepada Singapura
Pak Rizwan
banyak bidang.
contributed to Singapore in many fields. In Mendaki, MUIS, and the Council of Presidential Advisors,
Matan awam.
and throughout his career in the civil service.
Orang lagi Melayu cemerlang ialah
Another outstanding Malay is Porter Iskandar Jalil.
BBM.
who received the Public Service Star BBM this year. His beautiful handicrafts are often presented as gifts to tourists and distinguished visitors from overseas. Recently, I attended Jamia's 80th anniversary celebrations. One of Jamia's projects that you may know about is Darul Ma'wa, a children's shelter. But did you know that many Darul Ma'wa alumni have become successful, productive citizens? One of them is Sufyan Anwar. Sufyan is a striker on the Lions 12 team. His team was second in the Malaysian Super League this season, and I hope they will be champion next season. Another is Zulfadli Nazaluddin. Zulfadli is a spacecraft analyst at Singtel. He was a Polytechnic graduate and is now pursuing further studies to obtain his degree at NUS. Sufyan and Zulfadli have shown resilience and resolve, and such people are the role models of the community. Other youths have overcome difficult beginnings to do well. For example, Muhammad Kamal Jauhari Zaini. Jauhari admitted liked to smoke and played truant as a young student and was often caned. But he turned over a new leaf, worked hard, and made it to NTU. TTFS, or the Tertiary Tuition Fee Scheme, covered his university fees. Jauhari also gave tuition at Mendaki to earn extra pocket money. He recently graduated with first-class honours. And received the Lee Kuan Yew Gold Medal. So now Jauhari reserves praises instead of canings. Jauhari is an example that if there is a will, there is a way. Another outstanding young man is Adil Hakim Muhammad Rafi. More than a week ago, Adil emerged as one of the 5 President's Scholars. Adil was a student leader in Raffles Institution. He was also a member of the Singapore team that won the World Schools Debating Championship in the year 2011. Even as a student, Adil sacrificed time to enter the field and run educational programs for children and teenagers. All these successes are before your eyes. They prove that the Malay community can do it. Well done, all of you.
Sambil kita membimbing golongan yang berkebolehan,
even as we nurture the capable ones, we should also help those in difficulty. At the same time, encourage others who are managing adequately to do better. If you can maintain this progress year after year, I am confident that the community will transform itself and rise to the next level. This is our shared objective. So what more must we do now? I encourage all Malay Muslim organizations and activists to continue working together to tackle community issues harmoniously and cohesively. In fact, I am glad that many are doing this through CLF or the Community Leaders Forum. You should maintain the spirit of working together, make the most of your resources and talent so that you can achieve more meaningful progress for the community. As the Malay saying goes, unity is strength. The government will back your efforts to progress and to develop your culture. But you should make full use of this support. Next week, I will reopen the Malay Heritage Centre. The centre will showcase the rich Malay traditions to our future generations, to the other races and foreign visitors. The Malay Muslim community is an important part of our future. You share the aspirations and concerns of other Singaporeans. Like other citizens, you too want better homes to live in, more affordable healthcare, and a brighter future. I am happy with your progress. You are confident of your place in Singapore. You have many contributions to make to our economy, our society, and the nation. You can look to the future with confidence. Come, work with me and my Malay Muslim MPs and the community leaders to achieve our common goals. Together, the Malay Muslim community can continue to progress with the nation. You are sure to take your rightful place in Singapore's development. Let us give our best for the community and the nation that we all love. Let us realize our vision of a community of excellence in a united nation. Thank you.
Sekarang izinkan saya mengucap dalam bahasa Tionghoa.
Fellow citizens, good evening. In the blink of an eye, Singapore has been independent for almost 50 years. Today's Singapore, compared with 50 years ago, can be said to be a different world. On the whole, we cannot be considered a fully developed country, but our average income has reached that of the first world. We have solved the basic needs and are now pursuing a better quality of life. Question is, at this fairly high level, what should we do to scale greater heights? It's like climbing a mountain. The higher we go, the more difficult and tortuous the journey. Our situation is similar to that in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Korea. We are the four small dragons of Asia. After 30 to 40 years of high growth, we have come to a critical turning point. The era of rapid growth is over. We are all seeking a more stable path going forward. This requires new strategies, new formulae. No country can say definitely that we have found the formula. Therefore, the societies in East Asia have seen some anxiety and some unrest and become the subject of some media reports. A Taiwanese reporter or commentator mentioned in Asia Weekly that the Taiwanese are feeling anxious. The economy has gone down, job opportunities have shrunk, and people worry that the next generation will not be as good as themselves. And he said, interestingly, those who visit Taiwan, foreigners who go there, are appreciative of the economic and social progress of Taiwan. And Taiwanese seem to be a one-eyed dragon and only looking at Taiwan with one eye. Actually, she says, the Chinese, the Hong Kong people, and Singaporeans have similar sense of anxiety. Not long ago, a reporter in Zhao Bao Wu Qingkang wrote an article and expressed something quite similar. He said, Singaporeans like to complain, and the grouses seem to increase, gradually increasing. They always feel that other countries are better than we are, and they're looking at it selectively, looking at the favorable points of other countries. He said Singapore is not perfect. We are not as good as some countries, but we are better than others. I agree with his view. We are indeed not perfect, but I hope we'll look at ourselves with two eyes. Actually, relatively speaking, our situation is better than that in many countries. In China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, the media, the government, or the people recognize that they have something to learn from Singapore. In recent years, they've sent delegations to visit Singapore to assess our social and economic strategies. In the early days, it was economic strategies, and now they are paying more attention to our social development. And their conclusion often is that Singapore has gone further, has gone more steadily. And what Singapore has done, they may not be able to do the same. So I believe that Singapore has considerable space for development and potential. Let me give a few simple examples. First, Singaporeans do not have to worry about not getting a job. We are an excellent investment location with good job opportunities. Our unemployment rate is low, and in fact, in many sectors, we face a shortage of workers. Especially the SMEs recognize this point. Secondly, Singaporeans do not have to worry about not having a house to live in. Older Singaporeans who lived in Chinatown in the old days, or in the atap houses of the kampongs, in this kind of living condition, there were no modern facilities. And maybe there was just a bucket in the toilet. Well, you can't see that very clearly, but definitely it was there. When they moved into a brand new HDB flat, they deeply felt that there had been a dramatic improvement in their lives. Early HDB flats were not really beautiful, but the environment was clean and there were modern facilities. At least a modern toilet. These are the HDB flats in Tanglin Halt. And the playground. So the younger generation has grown up in this environment. It's a fairly good environment. So on this platform, to scale higher may not be as easy as before. But the government's commitment to everyone is that we should provide high quality and affordable flats. For example, this new generation flats, these are beautiful flats in Tegi Vista and every constituency was something similar. This is a modern children's playground in Sengkang. They're more colorful and exciting. So not only do they not have to worry about jobs and housing, young people do not have to worry about not having educational opportunities. 50 years ago when I was in primary school, out of 3 primary school pupils, only 2 could get into secondary school. So 1/3 passed the PSLE and got into secondary school. And finally, the number that got into university, out of 20, only 1 could make it to university. Now, almost everyone can complete secondary education. And out of every 3 young people, 1 can get into university. Besides, there are multiple channels for higher education, polytechnics, ITEs, providing opportunities for many sectors. And there's a saying to say that in every sector, you could get a top scholar. So we have done well, but we have to continue to go forward. We must be far-sighted and renew ourselves continually so that we will improve year by year, so that in a new age we'll be relevant to it. So we hope to provide opportunities for people to realize their potential and their aspirations. So we have to ensure that our economy will continue to prosper and grow. When we want to achieve economic growth, it's not just for our growth, but it's because we want to create better opportunities and a brighter future for our young generation. We must have this prerequisite, economic growth, before Singapore can be dynamic and full of hope. Of course, we are not blindly pursuing economic growth. We've always paid attention to social development and the quality of life of our people. In the next stage of development, we shall emphasize on a warmer and a more cultivated society. But this kind of society will need a firm economic foundation. Otherwise, it is just empty talk. In the next 20 years, it will be a rapidly changing, evolving society. We must seize the opportunity, get rid of the old, and develop new strategies to succeed. The young people can adapt to this new situation more easily, but the older citizens may find it more difficult. So we have to help the senior citizens to cope with the new situation. For example, older workers, we can encourage them to attend various training courses conducted by the government and NTUC to improve their skills and enhance their job opportunities. We have to help them to cope with the cost of living, medical expenses. For example, we have issued GST subsidies, GST vouchers, and top-ups to the MediSaves. So we have provided barrier-free public transport to look after those senior citizens who are less mobile. I also hope everyone to adopt an active attitude, keep healthy, and try to be self-sufficient. Of course, it's good to have lifelong learning and keep up with the developments in this world. Perhaps older people learn more slowly. For example, in learning to use the computers, the young people learn it as soon as they touch it. So the older people need the help from the sons and the grandchildren. I'm almost there. They learn it step by step. As soon as you learn something, the product is out of date, and there is a new product, and you have to learn a new program. But these problems can be overcome. I know many senior citizens are very active. Let me give 3 examples. The first example, Mr. Chung Winky is 71 years old. He's a chicken rice seller and loves photography. He used to be computer illiterate. A few years ago, he started to learn to use a computer, internet, and email. Now, he is a computer enthusiast and even an addict to computers. He maintains contact with his children and grandchildren, looking for new chicken rice recipes on the internet, and uses Facebook to make friends and share his photographs. I'm also a beginner of Facebook, so I'm actually his junior. I have to learn from him. A second example of an active senior is Madam Chang. Chang Ka-fong. She's already 87 years old. You see, she looks very well. This photograph appeared too quickly. I met her at the basketball court of CC on National Day. I was at the Tegi CC. So after the ceremony, I walked out and met Madam Chang shooting the basket, so I chatted with her. She told reporters that every day she goes to the CC and she must shoot at least 50 balls into the basket before she's satisfied. Then she'll go home, satisfied. Because she's happy and optimistic, she's a good example to us. Sometimes we may feel that we cannot do what she's doing. We may not need to shoot the basket every day, but we need to exercise often, and it's going to be good for our health. Another active senior is Mr. Chen Wu-Dek. He's 79 years old, a PhD student of UNISIM. Mr. Chen, before retirement, was a Chinese language teacher. After retirement, he became a student again and is pursuing a Chinese language and literature doctorate in UNISIM. His spirit is really admirable. So all three examples are excellent examples for us to follow. Mr. Chen's passion for the Chinese language inspires us. When we have to adapt to the changing world, we need to promote and preserve our tradition. The Chinese community has always been concerned about the preservation and promotion of culture and tradition. Chinese culture is an important pillar of Singapore culture. It is an emotional anchor and moral compass for many Singaporeans. We should preserve our cultural roots, lest we lose ourselves in this ever-changing world. Last year, I appointed Senior Parliamentary Secretary Sim Ann to chair the Bicultural Task Force to preserve our heritage. The task force gathered views widely and found that Singaporeans value their mother tongue. The task force has come up with some preliminary ideas to nurture bilingual and bicultural pursuits, talents. You will continue to seek and promote more ideas and hope everyone will contribute your ideas to the task force. Our clan associations, the community, have always played an important role in promoting culture and education. At the beginning of this year, the Singapore Federation of Chinese Clan Association put up a proposal to establish the Chinese Cultural Center. I support the proposal. With the government's assistance, they have identified a suitable site, which is next to the Singapore Conference Hall. I hope that the Cultural Center will receive the warm support and sponsorship of everyone.
In
order for the project to succeed, we need support and cooperation of everyone. The Singapore Hokkien Hui Kuan also enthusiastically promotes culture and education. Recently, it proposed the setting up of the Singapore Hokkien Hui Kuan Cultural Academy. The government supports the proposal. The academy will be located at the former Chai Chi Secondary School in East Coast. This is a preliminary concept view of the academy. I hope these two projects will enrich the cultural landscape in Singapore so that it will shine ever more. Preserving tradition and culture can strengthen our sense of identity. Singapore is an open city, and we have to work very hard to forge a united identity. Fortunately, our ethnic groups have coexisted in harmony and are integrated into one unique Singapore society. Hence, Singapore Chinese are different from Chinese elsewhere. Our Chinese language has local characteristics. We have some special terms. Recently, a National Day documentary was shown on TV, and there were some translation errors. National servicemen became national soldiers. HDB flats became national housing. This drew many criticisms. Obviously, the mistakes were made by foreign translators. The question is not in their translation skill or the linguistic skill. The question is they are not familiar with the local context or the terms commonly used in Singapore. Our special culture is different. It has brought us some problems. Translation is one issue. A more serious issue is to communicate with the new migrants. The new arrivals must work very hard in order to mix with the locals. Even if they came from the same culture and same race, there is some considerable difference. And this is one main reason for the friction between Singaporeans and the new arrivals. Singaporeans instinctively know the local norms for acceptable and unacceptable behavior because we're born and bred here. And unconsciously, we have absorbed the values, the norms, the customs, and common practice of this society. But new immigrants need some time to understand the Singapore mindset. This is a process which requires time, and we have to go along the path, maybe making some mistakes and learning from these mistakes before we finally find the right path to go forward. I urge new arrivals to make the efforts and learn some simple English to facilitate communication and interaction. And I also hope Singaporeans to help new arrivals to be more tolerant and to be more tolerant to them. It is noteworthy that groups of new arrivals have been active in charity and community work, becoming volunteers to help needing Singaporeans. These include the Kowloon Club, formed by immigrants from Hong Kong, and the Singapore Loving and Giving Society, formed by immigrants from China. As new citizens want to give back to society. They want to understand Singapore better. This is commendable and should be supported. The new immigrants may not be able to integrate fully into our society, but we can hope that the next generation will do so. I officiated at a new citizens ceremony in Tegi Community Center. There were new immigrants from many countries, Malaysia, India, China, and even some Western countries. And I chatted with a teenager, new citizen. I asked him, "Where are you from?" Immediately, instinctively, he said, "I'm from Ang Mo Kio." So I hope that one day he'll become my voter. We need new immigrants because our birth rate is too low, far below our replacement level. This is a dragon year this year, and there is a slight improvement. There are more babies, but it's still not enough. It still cannot reverse the long-term trend of a declining birth rate. We must have more local Singaporeans to become Singapore core and to preserve the characteristics of Singapore society. The government will continue to look for ideas and improve our social environment to make it more conducive to have more children. If you have some good ideas, please give us your good ideas and suggestions. We can only encourage on the side. The key is that people must be moved and take action. So please work harder. So let me sum up my speech. Singapore is in a new phase, completely different phase of development. The next 20 years will be full of opportunities as well as challenges. We have to renew ourselves continually and, when necessary, boldly innovate and reinvent ourselves. Swee Keat and other young ministers over the next few months will seek the views of people and decide which policies should be revamped and changed. I hope everyone will support my team and seek together the way forward so that Singapore will continue to be a successful place, highly respected place, so that Singaporeans will create for themselves a better living condition, a higher standard of culture. As long as we work hard, we can create a better Singapore for all of us. Thank you.
Friends and fellow Singaporeans, we've traveled from third world to first. You know the Singapore story to date well. Our question is, what is the next chapter of this story? Where do we want Singapore to be 20 years from now? The next 20 years will see many changes in the world. The first big question will be, will there be peace or instability in the world and in Asia? If it is not peace, if it is tensions, then we must brace ourselves for a rough ride. But if it is peace and prosperity worldwide, which looks likely, then it's going to be an exciting era of rapid progress and dramatic change. We are both a country and a city. So when we look forward into our future, we have to see our future against what other countries are doing and also against what other cities are doing in the world. In Asia, I expect many countries will continue to rise, and especially the biggest ones, China and India. And they will compete against us in many business areas, manufacturing, services, R&D, and in some areas, they will surpass us. And some parts of China and India will certainly surpass us. But at the same time, these big giants will offer many opportunities for Singaporeans. Their cities, Shanghai, Beijing, Mumbai, Bangalore, will become even more vibrant and exciting places to live and work. They already are. Not quite so comfortable, not quite so clean environmentally, but they will improve. And for their people, it will be exciting. For Singaporeans, it will be very pleasant too. In the developed countries in the West, the change may not be so dramatic, and their problems will be also not so easy to solve, like the problems which Europeans are going through now. But their leading cities, like New York, Los Angeles, London, these, I believe, will continue to thrive because they are not only connected to their own countries and the problems in those countries, they are connected to the whole world. Talent flows in, resources flows in, ideas come in, new projects, new companies start up, new changes which influence the world. And we have to see ourselves against those cities and ask us, where do we want to be? One of the big changes in the world, which will change the world, will be technology. It will completely transform our lives. Already it's a huge part of how we live, work, and play. We don't always realize it, but it is. If I ask who in this room does not own a handphone, please put your hand up. You know what I mean. But think 20 years ago, how it was in 1992. Not a lifetime ago, just 20 years. It wasn't like that. People used coin phones, card phones. When recruits were called up in camp, confinement, queue up to phone home, like that. Today, when you're called up, or when your sons are called up, BMTC Pulau Tekong, the first night, the instructors tell them, please use your handphone, call home. Call your mother first, then call your girlfriend. In 1992, the internet had not yet really come to Singapore. And nowhere in the world did anybody imagine Facebook or YouTube or how these gizmos and newfangled things would impact societies, impact our lives. And today, Singapore is one of the most wired countries in the world. So just think back those 20 years and ask yourself how you can imagine what 20 years from now will be like. Not just the technology, but what the technology has done to our lives. I just give you a few examples of things which we can see now, which I think will be big in the next 20 years. A lot of it to do with IT, with computers, with robots. The first one is this mysterious thing. This unidentified flying object was seen at a passing out parade on the floating platform recently. Recruit passing out parade. It circulated buzz on the internet. People ask, is this a secret spy project belonging to MINDEF? So I asked MINDEF, is this a secret spy project? MINDEF told me, after investigating the matter carefully, they said, no, it has nothing to do with me. This is a UAV, an unmanned aerial vehicle. No pilot, but it flies, it's smart. And whom does it belong to? Jack Neo filming his latest movie, Our Boys to Men. It's just one of many uses which UAVs will have in the future. The military use them, reconnaissance, targeting, communications. Civilians use them. You can use them for crowd control. You can use them for civil defense purposes. You can use them to manage crops, to keep track of what's happening on broad areas. So many countries are interested in this. The US Defense Research Agency, DARPA, ran a competition recently on the internet for people to design UAVs. Crowdsourcing. There was an NTU team which participated in this competition. It was called UAVforge.net. And the NTU team submitted a UAV, participated in this, and that entry was called Extractor X. Can I? There were 140 teams which competed in this competition from all over the world. Extractor X from Singapore got into the final 10 and eventually ranked 6th out of this 140. And I should tell you that amongst the people whom they came ahead of, one was the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and the other one was the Japanese Ministry of Defense. So I think that we did well. One day, when you fly SIA, you may fly UAV. It will take some time, but it is technically possible. What I'm not so sure is possible is that you can have something replace a Singapore girl. And that, I think the human touch will be there for some time to come. But UAVs are an example of robots, technology, computers, artificial intelligence, which is going to be pervasive. In healthcare too, we are going to see changes. A-STAR is doing research on brain waves. Reading brain waves using your brain just by thinking you control a robot. And here, this person is using his brain. You see all the electrodes attached to his head. He's controlling the computer. The computer is controlling this machine, this arm, which is moving his left arm. So if you can imagine, if he is a stroke victim, this is something which can help him exercise, regain his strength, or move for him. Become like a bionic person. How will these technological advances affect us? It's not just a gee whiz factor, cute to talk about, but it's going to cause the whole economy to change, entire industries to alter. Retailers are under pressure from online shops, whether you're selling books, Amazon, whether you're selling videos. It's not even video delivered by mail, but video comes down your broadband. Even groceries, you can order, it'll be delivered. No need for the shop, no need for the expensive rental space. Some jobs will disappear. Others will have to be redesigned. Workers will have to be retrained. Learn to use technology, how to raise productivity. You may be cleaning, but you can't just be sweeping the floor. You have to use a machine to do it better. You may be a personal secretary, but your phone with Siri in a few years will be as smart as a personal secretary. The personal secretary will have to become office manager to do other things which a phone can't do. Our social norms will change. How we communicate with one another, how we interact with one another. It's going to transform Singapore in many ways which we can't tell. This year, National Day, we were, or many of us were, at the floating platform on the bay. Some of us were overseas. There was one group in Melbourne. They gathered, they watched it live streaming on the internet. Some of those kids' parents were at the bay. So we were having a remote joint celebration. They SMS one another. You are watching the show here, they are watching the show there. You are enjoying it, separated by 5,000 miles. It's a different world. Within Singapore, domestic factors will change Singapore too over the next 20 years. Some of these you can already see. A more mature economy, an aging society, a population which is better educated. But our future is not predetermined. It depends on ourselves. What we make of our resources, our education, our people, what we hope Singapore will be, and what we will Singapore to become. What we decide we want to be there, let's get there. We have to set a clear direction. We cannot just be blown off course or drift with the tides onto the rocks. So I asked Heng Swee Keat to lead a national conversation on our Singapore, to define what sort of country we want and how we can achieve it. So please join in this national effort. Think seriously about our future, contribute your ideas, work together to make it happen. In a rapidly changing world, Singapore must keep on improving, because if we stand still, we are going to fall behind. You may think you will be happy as you are, but when you see how the world has moved and what the human spirit is capable of elsewhere, we will not be happy. And even if we are, our children will not be happy. So we have to keep on moving. And if we adapt to changes and exploit new opportunities, we will thrive. So what should the next chapter of the Singapore story be about? I think if I summarize it very, very briefly in 3 words: hope, heart, home. We always have to offer hope of a better future in Singapore. An economy that creates opportunities for our people. A society that nurtures our people to the fullest potential. And a people who look to the future and not just back to the past. A nation where our children will live better lives than us, as we did our parents. We've done it in this generation, for this generation, with this generation. And it was brought home vividly to me recently in one MPS session when Mr. Topi Singh came to see me. He's a Teck Ghee resident. He works in the construction industry. He came to see me for some help because he needed a recertification for the construction safety orientation course. But he had a problem because he's illiterate. He can't read English, he can't read Chinese. He knows the safety rules, he can pass the exam, but he needs somebody to read the exam for him. So could I please write him a letter? So I happily wrote him a letter, then I had a chat with him and his wife after that. And he told me proudly that his 2 children were graduates. The daughter, Hui San, is an accountant with IRAS, this lady. And the son, Wei Xiong, is an A-star researcher. He graduated from Singapore Poly. He went to university overseas. Eventually, he earned a PhD from NUS. He was awarded an A-star international fellowship. He did a postdoc fellowship in Harvard, and now he's back, research scientist, Institute of Bioengineering and Nanotechnology. I believe researching the structure of bones. So Mr. To was happy that his children had done much better than himself. And his family reflects the experiences of so many other families in Singapore and epitomizes Singapore's transformation in one generation from third world to first, from somebody illiterate, never had a chance to learn to read, but brought up children have been to Harvard, researchers, working, doing well. But beyond the broad lessons, I'm sure you'll want to know what happened to Mr. To's MPS case. I got a reply from the NTUC Learning Hub, which was a training provider. They've automated their process now, so you don't need somebody to read the questions for Mr. To. They advised Mr. To take the computer-based audio exam. So the computer will read the questions and Mr. To can answer. And I'm happy to say that Mr. To passed the examination. I know that our people sometimes worry about the future. Can our children really do better than us? But if we take a step back and look at where we are objectively and see our situation in perspective, I think the answer is we are in much better shape than we give ourselves credit for. We have strong fundamentals. What do we mean? A world-class workforce, sound finances, a system that works. It's not perfect. Every now and then something goes wrong, and every time an MRT malfunctions, we are reminded of this. But we can fix these imperfections and we can keep on making it better. We may be very conscious of our shortcomings, but others have a high regard for what we've achieved. I met the president of MIT recently, Susan Hockfield. She was then about to retire and she was going on a visit to many countries in Asia. She came here, I knew her, gave her dinner. And she told me how impressed she was with Singapore. She said, Singapore is the only country where you can see the full potential of the human spirit. And this is a person, head of one of the top institutions in the world, the brightest. She's got people from all around the world. She's traveled. She tells me this, completely unsolicited. I think we should give ourselves a little bit of credit. If we all work together and confidently tackle our problems, then I think we will improve our lives. On jobs, we are bringing in many new investments. We are creating new and better jobs. In fact, more jobs than we have persons to do them. We are strengthening the core of the workforce, the Singapore core of the workforce. We are offering new Singapore industry scholarships for Singaporeans to go to university and work for local companies to build up our local companies. This year alone, 90 scholarships and more to come. We're upgrading our low-income workers, whether it's cleaning, security industries or others. The opportunities are there. Take advantage of them, upgrade yourselves to become more productive, to become more employable. Public transport, I mentioned MRT just now. We are making major investments in trains. $60 billion over 10 years. Many lines coming on. Thomson Line work is going to start very soon. It goes from Woodlands to Marina Bay. The downtown line from Bukit Panjang to Changi Expo will open in phases starting next year. But train projects by their nature take time, major investments, and you have to plan well ahead. So while we do the trains, we are also working on the Bus Services Enhancement Program, BSEP. It was a little bit controversial when we announced it in the budget, but it's a good thing. I think it's the right thing to do, and it will benefit many, many Singaporeans. And the commuters should start to see new buses, new services, and better frequencies under the BSEP starting by next month, progressively as we phase in the additional buses and as we hire and train the new drivers. On aging and healthcare, new hospitals are on the way. Ng Teng Fong Hospital in Jurong and the next one in Sengkang, well under planning. We are building more nursing homes and daycare centers. But on your part, please make the effort. Keep fit, live healthily is the best and the cheapest health care anyone can provide himself. On housing, we are cutting the waiting time to book HDB flats, and I'm confident that nearly every Singaporean household can afford and can get their own home. We've done it before, we can continue to do it. There's enough space to accommodate the whole population, even as it grows somewhat. We're developing more housing estates. In the longer term, we will reclaim more land. And we're not just building flats, but creating better living environments with green spaces, blue waters, clear skies. And with your help, we are building stronger communities. Communities where people live happily together, where people cooperate with one another. There's one thing I should mention apropos housing before I move on, and that is the question of housing for singles. It's something which is on the minds of many Singaporeans because the single numbers have gone up. Singles can buy HDB flats on a resale market and get a government grant, CPF grant, but they are not yet allowed to buy HDB flats directly from HDB. And I think this has caused some concern because resale prices have gone up. I fully understand these concerns. I should say MND also fully understands the situation, and I would also say Corbyn One is looking actively at the matter. Beyond these immediate challenges, we have to look ahead, prepare ourselves for the longer term. And the most important long-term investment we can make is in our people and to make it through education. It's the key response to progress in technology and to the changing world. If you ask, how do I cope with UAVs, with technology, with computers, with life sciences, with new processes and products. The answer is educate yourself for the new world. Learn to control the computers and robots. Don't get replaced by them. We've got to keep upgrading ourselves, outthink and outsmart the competition, and be smart enough to take advantage of the technology. And we have a good education system at all levels. Our universities produce graduates which are highly sought after here and abroad. This picture was taken, I think, in this room. There are more graduation ceremonies than National Day rallies held in this room every year. Our IT and poly students do brilliantly. They are considered world-class institutions. Nobody else has anything like that. They compete internationally, world skills competition. They win many medals. And the latest ones, hot off the press, is the FIRA World Cup, Robo Cup. This is not the FIFA World Cup, but this is the robots equivalent, Federation of International Robotic Associations. They had the competition in Bristol, and yesterday was the finals, and we came back, the Nanyang Poly team, 12 medals. Seven gold, 3 silver, 2 bronze. There are two classes, bigger robots and smaller robots. So the large one, Evo Rocky, won the overall gold. What did it get gold for? Sprint, weightlifting, penalty kick, lift and carry, marathon. But this picture is the smaller robot. His name is Red Atom. And he is the world record sprinter. World record sprinter. 3 meters forward, 3 meters back. The robot has to run, and it broke the world record in 32 seconds. And BBC reported on this and described him as a Usain Bolt of robots. Our schools, students also do well. Across the board and at the top, they shine also in international competitions. This year, our team won the International Biology Olympiad. We hosted it, and we won the team first place. And the International Mathematics Olympiad, which I think was in Buenos Aires, a Singaporean, Lim Jack, NUS Maths and Science School, was the top student. He came first, full marks, the only one to score full marks this year. First time it's happened. But we are not just focusing on the best students. Yes, we ought to celebrate our gold medalists, our outstanding ones. But our schools and teachers are also doing their best for every student, from the weakest to the most talented ones. And that's why we say every school is a good school, every neighborhood you have a good school. And this is not just a slogan, this is a reality. I received an email recently from one of my residents. I use my examples because I know them, but if the other MPs will surely have similar. This was from a father, Mr. Balu. His son, Praveen, is a primary 6 student in Townsville Primary School. And he wrote me this. Where's Balu and Praveen? He said, I'm impressed by the openness and approachability of the teachers, together with the guidance and motivation of dedicated teachers like Madam Suhaizan and Mr. Kwek. My son performed much better in his mid-year exams. With such a dedicated team of educators, we are certain that my son will be much better prepared for his forthcoming PSLE. So every school is a good school. And if you look at this picture, it tells a story because they are posing in Townsville, and I've been there, and these pictures are not drawn by the teachers, they're drawn by the students. because it's a niche area of excellence for Townsville Primary School. I can tell you that when I was in primary 6, I couldn't draw pictures like that. And I still can't. But today, the opportunities are there, and I think the results are showing. Beyond school, we are opening up more paths in higher education. Singaporeans have very high aspirations. Every parent wants his or her son to do as well as possible, go to university. And many ITE students hope to go on to the poly, and most poly students aspire to get a degree. One way or another, they want to get there. So we've been increasing our university places year by year for Singaporeans, but still more Singaporeans want to go. So last year, I tasked Lawrence Wong to study this issue. And he concluded that we should create more university places, but that we should focus on applied, practice-oriented degrees. For example, engineers, physiotherapists, social workers. Skills which are useful, which are in demand, which will help to get the graduates jobs. And we should not just churn out graduates, regardless of the quality of the employment opportunities. Set up the institutions, run the courses, print the degrees, produce the graduates, generate a lot of disappointment and unhappiness. Other countries have made this mistake. We produce unemployed graduates, underemployed graduates. Europe has got them, Britain, America, even China. Many graduates come out looking for work, can't find work. So we must avoid leading people up the wrong path, misleading them that if you spend 3 years of your life doing this, at the end you will have a happy outcome. We must make sure that if we let people go that way and encourage people to go that way, that at the end, the prospects are good. Right now, we have 2 institutions that work closely with industry and emphasize practice-oriented teaching. One is SIM University, called UNISIM, which is a private institution, and it runs part-time courses for adult students. And it collaborates closely with the industry. For example, it runs aerospace systems courses. And the courses include a practicum, meaning the students have to spend a certain number of hours or weeks with a company in the industry, working in the company, learning about the practical aspects of aerospace engineering. And they do the same with their social workers and their other courses. The other institution is SIT, the Singapore Institute of Technology, which has high-quality foreign partners in focus areas. For example, one partner is DigiPen, which is one of the top American institutions for interactive digital media. And here you'll see the student rendering something, and the younger ones among you will know that this thing is called an ATST, Star Wars, All-Terrain Scout Transport Walker. I confess I didn't know, I had to learn. But the young ones know, and they are going to master this. SIT is partnering Technical University of Munich, TUM, science and engineering courses. Here they are doing robots. I think this must be a robot soccer game. They are partnering the CIA, not the Central Intelligence Agency, but the Culinary Institute of America. Learn culinary arts. Again, one of the top institutes. And if you're going to be a chef or going to be running a restaurant, the CIA teaches you how to do it well. Here the students are learning from an American chef about pita bread. So SIT works with the foreign partners, and the degrees are currently awarded by these foreign partners. So what will we do? We will increase the full-time places for applied degrees. We will make SIT and UNISIM our 5th and our 6th universities. SIT will expand, and it will award degrees in its own name in addition to the partnerships it has. UNISIM will add full-time programs to its part-time courses. And it will build on its strong industry links, but it will remain a private university. And that way, we can increase the current full-time university intake by a total of 3,000 students a year by 2020. In other words, today, we take in 13,000 undergraduates a year, first year. By 2020, we will take in 16,000 students a year, 3,000 more. And that will mean 40% of each cohort will go to university, up from 27% today. And that will include more poly students and more JC students. And I think that it will help to meet the aspirations of many Singaporeans. That's for full-time, but at the same time, I think we should not forget the part-time students, the adult students. UNISIM runs part-time courses. I visited them recently. I was impressed with them, with their students too. Most of the students are in their late 20s or 30s, mostly poly grads, gone out to work and decided to resume their studies while working. I chatted with some of them. I asked them, why did you want to do this? Take this path. They said, well, when they left school or poly, they were not certain what they wanted to do, so they started work. After a few years of work, they knew the job market better, they knew themselves better, they had decided what they wanted to do with their lives, they resolved to enroll in UNISIM and start up again. Married, with children, with jobs, but they had decided to do it and they were going to make it succeed. So I found them mature, clear in their own minds what they wanted to do in their lives, determined to succeed. Quite a different profile from young students who go straight to university and for whom all possibilities are still open. So it needs tremendous commitment and grit to succeed if you go to UNISIM, and I think we should help people like that. Sometimes both husband and wife attend the course at the same time. And I met one couple, Alex To and Natalie Chen, who are both on course at the same time. Alfred To and Natalie Chen. Alfred is doing marketing, Natalie is doing visual comms. Midway through the course, Natalie got pregnant. So the course had to pause. The baby was born. But when the baby was a little bit older, Alfred and Natalie resumed their course. And now the baby is a toddler, Zhi Xuan, and Alfred and Natalie are about to graduate. So I think they deserve our congratulations. So this is a very good option for some segment of our students to leave school, go to work, and then later on, when you're clearer what you want to do something which is focused, practical, and will help take your life aims forward. So we should give them more support. How? We'll make more part-time places available. And secondly, we will extend government bursaries and loans to UNISIM part-time students so that they get the same support as part-time students in NUS and NTU. When I met the students, some of them asked me, says, can you allow us to take our CPF for education, just like people can for the full-time courses? I said, no, you are working, you have responsibilities, your CPF is for your house and your future. We will give you more support. I would prefer the government help you rather than you take from your CPF. And I think with the bursaries and with the loans and with the scholarships, this will help those who have some financial difficulty to achieve their ambitions and their aspirations. MOE will announce the details later, but I hope Singaporeans will take advantage of this, not just to collect a piece of paper, but to develop yourselves, learn something useful, make a contribution to society. At the other end of our education system, we also need to improve the quality of our preschool education. Once upon a time, education used to start when you went to school and entered primary 1 or standard 1. My mother's generation, it was like that, about 90 years ago now. She only learned to read when she went to school. And it wasn't because she was disadvantaged or deprived. It was the norm. That's how kids learned. And she never felt any loss, and she managed perfectly well in life. But when it came to my turn, she sent me at a young age to Nanyang Kindergarten to learn Mandarin. And that was 50 plus years ago. Times had changed by then, and times have changed even more now. Family structures have evolved. There are more nuclear families, just husband and wife, and fewer children. More dual income parents. So fewer opportunities for the kids to socialize at home with grandparents, with elder siblings, with cousins. We now know how important the early years are for children's development. The brain is most receptive to learning certain things at that age, especially languages, sounds, grammar, pronunciation. It's an age where kids can gain confidence and curiosity about the world around them. What's that? Let's go and explore. Let's take a small risk, learn what is dangerous, what is not. It's also when kids should pick up positive behavior, social skills, and learning attitudes. When to queue up, take your turn, share. And so good preschool education will prepare students to enter primary 1, and it will provide many long-term benefits later on in life, whether in terms of your career stability, in terms of not getting into trouble with drugs or with crime, in terms of your family stability when you get married. So today in Singapore, nearly 99%, nearly all children, in fact more than 99% of kids already attend preschool. There's a diverse mix of operators. 2 key anchor operators, we call them AOPs. One is NTUC, the other one is a PAP Community Foundation. They are the anchor operators. They have just under half the total market, and many different private providers as well. The government provides financial support to make preschool affordable. And we also provide support to the anchor operators to raise their standards. We've been doing this for several years. We're making progress, but I think it's not enough, and we have to do more. I think we have to substantially raise the quality of preschool education for children aged 5 and 6 years old, especially the AOPs, the mass market anchor operators. And at the same time, we have to keep preschool affordable, especially to the middle and lower income households. Because if you're going to raise standards considerably, it's going to mean more resources, higher costs. You're going to recruit more teachers, even better quality teachers. It's going to cost money. And if you're going to do that without raising the cost to the parents and keeping it affordable, the government has to come in. Our objective is to level up all our students and make a positive difference to their development, especially the students from the disadvantaged homes. So the government will invest substantial resources in preschool education and play a more active role. First of all, we'll establish a new statutory board to oversee preschool education. Secondly, we'll provide and upgrade preschool teacher training to raise standards. Thirdly, we'll bring in new anchor operators in addition to PCF and NTUC. And fourthly, we'll upgrade the anchor operators, the existing one as well as the new ones, so that they can improve the careers which they can offer the teachers. They can offer structured development opportunities for the staff. They can introduce creative learning methods for the students, but to raise the base, the quality of the mass market. And fifthly, we will pilot a few government-run preschool centers to test new concepts in kindergarten education. And finally, we'll give more support to lower and middle income families so that it stays affordable. But we will not nationalize the preschool sector. I read the debates in the newspapers over the last few months. Some people want the government to pao ga liao. I think the government has a role to play, but the government's role is not to do everything. There's a mix of operators, and I think having a mix of operators offers diversity and choice. I think the choice is useful for parents because different parents will have different views, what their kids need, and different kids will have different needs. So we shouldn't deprive parents of this choice, but instead we should raise the base. Make sure that wherever you go is a good kindergarten. I've sketched out the broad outlines, but how exactly to do this? Well, MOE and MCYS will follow up on the matter. The transformation will take some time, but I'm confident that 5 to 7 years, we will be able to see results. But I would like to offer one caution to parents. Please let your children have their childhood. Preschool is to teach the kids certain skills which are best learned at that age. Language, social skills, basic motor skills. It's not meant for you to prepare with a primary 1, primary 2 textbook and to drill the kid at 3 or 4 years old so that by the time he goes to P1, he already knows what the teacher is supposed to teach him. Education experts, child development specialists, they warn against over-teaching preschool children. You do harm. You turn the kid off, you make his life miserable. Instead of growing up balanced and happy, he grows up narrow and neurotic. No homework is not a bad thing. It's good for young children to play and to learn through play. So please, I've heard of parents who send their children to 2 kindergartens. I read of parents who send their kindergarten-age children to tuition. Please don't do that. Education is vital to the future of Singapore, to creating hope for a better tomorrow. And hope is essential to our future and to the Singapore story. But besides hope, Singapore tomorrow must also have a bigger heart. Care and compassion for the needy and elderly, but also a largeness of spirit, a generosity, a magnanimity to those who are around us. It reflects the sort of people we are and the values which we hold dear. We've for a long time recognized the importance of taking care of the less fortunate members of society. We've worked hard to build an inclusive society and enabled everyone to enjoy the fruits of progress, especially the weak and the elderly and the disabled, through housing, through education, through healthcare, heavily subsidized and widely available. But especially and most fundamentally, through growth, prosperity, which has created jobs and improved lives for all. Over the last decades, new needs have emerged. Society has become stretched out, somewhat stratified. We get pressure of globalization. So we've addressed these new social needs with new programs: workfare, comcare, additional housing grants, special housing grants. So many schemes, so many ways to help. But the objective is targeted to uplift Singaporeans who need help. And in this year's budget, we made a major shift with an inclusive budget, with significant initiatives for the elderly, like the Silver Housing Bonus, for the low and middle income, like the GST vouchers, for the disabled, like daycare activity centers. We're not just spending more, but we're setting a new strategic direction for Singapore and laying the basis for stronger social safety nets, which will stand the test of the next couple of decades. Because we are striking a new balance in our social compact. What you must do as individuals, as families, and what the state will help you to do so that we can advance together. And what we've started in the budget, we will build on in the years to come. But I would like, as always, to have a caution, have a care. 3 cautions. First, inclusiveness doesn't just mean more good things from the state or falling from heaven. All benefits have to be paid for. People say you're rich, you have reserves. We are already relying on reserves, spending part of the returns from investing these reserves. It's what Ministry of Finance calls NIRC, Net Investment Returns Contributions. It's an item in the budget. When you invest the money, every year it grows, you take a bit of that growth, or half of that growth, and we use it for our spending. And it's helped us fund many new programs and still balance our budget without having to push up taxes sharply. So last year, to FY 2011, from reserves, we got $8 billion to spend. We got more money from the reserves to spend than we got by collecting personal income taxes. And I think it's 4 times as much as we got from COEs. So it's not a small amount of money. It's 1/7 of our expenditures every year comes from our reserves. So we are already drawing on this. So if the reserves grow, you may get more. If the reserves don't, well, we will have to live with less. But we have to draw from the reserves in a sustainable way so that it stays there and you can continue to have money there year after year. We can't just spend everything on ourselves. We have a responsibility to the future, to the next generation. And we have to husband these reserves so that the next generation won't say, my grandparents, they spent it all. If you look ahead, the state is bound to spend more on social services. We are aging, medical science is progressing. Every year, the demands will increase, and these demands will have to be partially met from the state. So the social spending will go up. In many countries, the politicians champion social spending, but they pretend that it doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. Even in Singapore, sometimes people tell you, it doesn't matter, that's just a social investment. Since it's an investment, it'll look after itself. But let me tell you the truth. As our social spending increases significantly, sooner or later, our taxes must go up. Not immediately, but if you're talking about 20 years, certainly within that 20 years, whoever is the government will at some point have to raise taxes because the spending will have to be done and the spending will have to be paid for. And I hope that the government of the day will have the gumption to do that and the population of the day will have the good sense to support that. So that's the first caveat. Nothing falls from heaven. The second message is social safety nets have to be coupled with self-reliance and resilience. We have to want to do the best for ourselves. People have to be motivated to make the effort, to strive, not just to queue up and get something from the state. The state will help you where it can, but it cannot replace what you and your family can do for yourselves and for each other. To survive, we have to be resilient, tough as individuals, close as families, cohesive as a society, strong as a nation. And we have to be prepared to compete and to hold our own. The competition is there. There is no place to hide. The government can help to enable you to meet the competition. It's not possible for us to say we'll keep the competition away. The big bad wolf is outside. We are quite safe at home, nothing to worry about. Competition is there. We have to be tough enough. Sometimes something will go wrong. And when we encounter setbacks, we must have the spunk to pick ourselves up, dust off whatever stuck to us, and press on. The third caveat I have is we must maintain a sense of mutual responsibility amongst ourselves, and especially on the part of those who are more successful than others. You've succeeded working hard through your own efforts, yes, but you've also benefited from the system, which nurtured you, and from the many others who helped you to do well. President Obama in America said this recently. He got flamed because it got politicized. He says, Obama said, if you succeed, it's not because of yourself. But this is exactly what he meant. You may be a great entrepreneur, you may be a very successful banker, you may have invented something, but there were schools, there were parents, there were teachers, there's a society, there's a system which enabled you to do well. Without that, you would have been nothing. And I think that our successful people have to know that, and also have to feel that obligation, that it's right, that having done well, they make the effort and help others too. And one way to do this is by starting a social enterprise. One lady who started something is Josephine Ng, who started a social enterprise called Alteration Initiative. Josephine used to run a marketing agency, did well, but then she decided she wanted to do something more, sold it, and to give back to society. So she founded Alteration Initiative. And what it does is to provide professional alteration services. And the employees are women in need, so she trains them as seamstresses, she gives them decent salaries, and Alteration Initiative not just alters clothes, but transforms the employees' lives as well. Besides social welfare, another aspect of having a big heart is very important. And that is knowing how to treat one another on this little island of ours. We've built a harmonious society by being big-hearted. We treat our fellow citizens with respect. We accommodate the practices and the beliefs and the customs of different races and religions. We share our void decks for Malay weddings, Chinese funerals, other ceremonies. There's a spirit of give and take, mutual accommodation. We're all in this same country together. And indeed, I think most Singaporeans are generous by nature. You read many heartwarming stories and thank you letters in the Straits Times forum. Taxi driver returns a handbag left in his taxi. Old lady fell down. Stranger came, picked her up, helped her cross the road, go home. These are all ways which we ought to be behaving and acting. More people are donating to charitable causes. Young people particularly are passionate over causes beyond themselves. I met a bunch of youth leaders recently over tea, and I was very cheered by the experience, just as you heard Lawrence Wong talk about it earlier. Because they were engaged, they were positive, they were doing something about it, not just talking about it, and they could see how their efforts were making society better. One of them was Tok King Ling. She's a youth volunteer, and she leads overseas youth expeditions. She topped her class in Nanyang Poly. Now she's pursuing a social work degree in NUS. And I think she will make an outstanding social worker because her passion is there. Farhan Firdaus, another active youth volunteer, he founded Voluntarius, which is an organization which brings youths together to do good work. For example, cycling to raise money for disadvantaged kids. And there are many more stories like that. But I would be less than honest if I didn't tell you that there are also some troubling signs, which we can all see. Residents reserving public roads outside their houses to park their own cars. They don't use tissue paper. They use dustbins, they use flower pots. and then they use the dustbins and flower pots to fight one another once in a while. HDB neighbors on the same corridor quarreling over the washing of the corridor. One wants it clean, the other one wants it dry. No end of arguments. Placing of potted plants. Arguments over noise. One says he's practicing his singing, the other one says you're disturbing my child's examination preparations. It becomes a feud. The RCs have a big headache because they are friends with both, but they cannot make the problem go away. People objecting to nursing homes and studio apartments in their own place, but please put it just across the road so it's not too far away. These are not new things, it's still only a minority, but we seem to be getting less patient, less tolerant, less willing to compromise in order to get along. Maybe it's because we are losing the kampong spirit. We talk about the kampong spirit. We think back to the picture just now which I showed in my Chinese speech of how the kampong was. All the kids, big and small, gathered around the well. So you're not just collecting water or washing clothes or bathing, but you're interacting with one another and therefore getting along with one another. When we move into HDB flats, some of that remain. You had the common corridors. People leave the doors open, talk to one another. There are common spaces. You may wait for the lift, and in the old days you wait quite long for the lift because one lift on 3 floors, no LUP yet. So one way or another you interact with your neighbors and you become friends, and so there's give and take. But today we lead more private lives. The corridors are, many of them, not common corridors. 3-4 flats share one lift landing. LUP, now you don't have to go downstairs and meet people from three levels, just people on your floor. Work takes more time. There are fewer opportunities to bump into neighbors. Unconsciously, less interaction results in less consideration, maybe more self-centered behavior. And maybe that explains why there's a rising trend of not so good behavior. But we shouldn't let this spread and make us into ugly Singaporeans. I think we'll be ashamed of ourselves. We should do our best to be big-hearted to our neighbors, to our fellow citizens, in fact, to our fellow human beings. And it's not just a matter of courtesy, it goes much deeper than that. It reflects how unselfish we are, how much we respect other people. There's one particularly difficult area where we need to be big-hearted, and that is in relations between Singaporeans and non-Singaporeans. I think most Singaporeans understand the need for immigrants, for foreign workers, and accept them. But many Singaporeans have concerns because the influx has caused some real problems, and I completely understand this. And I think it's fair enough for people to express concern or to disagree with our immigration trends or oppose our immigration policies. That's part of the democratic debate. But I'm worried by some of the nasty views which are expressed, especially online and especially anonymously, which brings out the worst in people. When a foreigner says or does something wrong, especially to Singaporean, the response is overwhelming. But when a Singaporean does something wrong, which I think we all have to admit once in a while does happen, very often the behavior is uncriticized. And when a foreigner does a good deed, very often that goes unnoticed. I give you some examples from the internet. Sun Xu became famous. NUS student made an angry blog post, offensive. He was roundly and rightly chastised and punished by NUS. But if you go online, you will find many nasty posts by Singaporeans about foreigners. In fact, there are some websites which specialize in tormenting and berating certain groups of foreigners from certain countries, very few people stand up to say that this is wrong, it's shameful, we repudiate that. I think that's no good. You look at incidents on buses. The Straits Times published one letter recently about a foreign nurse on a bus, the foreign nurse who made a difference. Because a woman, old woman, got sick on the bus, threw up, dirty, smelly, the other passengers all shied away. This foreign nurse came forward, cleaned her up, helped her, took her off the bus. She was the only one who responded. So somebody wrote this in the forum page. There was no video, there was no YouTube, there was no internet response whatsoever. On the other hand, when two women quarreled over a bus seat, you know which YouTube video I'm talking about. The non-Singaporean behaved and screamed outrageously. The Singaporean sat there. The video went viral. So I think this, as the Taiwanese author says, Du Yan Long, one-eyed dragon. We cannot afford to be one-eyed dragons. It reflects badly on us. It damages our international reputation. People think that Singapore is anti-foreigner, xenophobic. New York Times carried an article. Very powerful headline. In Singapore, vitriol against Chinese newcomers. Other newspapers carry stories too. Herald Tribune carried the same story, softer headline. Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, even Xinhua carries stories. It doesn't do us good. But more fundamentally than that, apart from our reputation, it speaks poorly of what sort of people we are. I mean, what sort of people do we want to be? We need to be people who are proud of ourselves, who have a heart, who can feel for our fellow human beings, who will be courteous, respectful, and behave with others as we would like others to behave to us. It's not my job to give a lecture or a sermon. This is a speech. But I have to point this out. This is my duty. There will be social frictions from time to time. It's unavoidable. There will be non-Singaporeans who will behave badly. They may post something offensive. They may behave badly towards neighbors. They may offend people of other races because they are insensitive. They don't know what the norms are. And ditto, from time to time, there will be Singaporeans who do that too. And unfortunately, technology is one of the things which has made this worse, because with smartphones and social media, it's easier to give offense and it's easier to take offense. You cannot pretend you didn't see, and even if you think nobody saw, somebody may have filmed it. So we should deal with these incidents maturely. It's all right to express disapproval of what's happened. It's necessary even. It's not all right to be a one-eyed dragon or to condemn all non-Singaporeans or all Singaporeans based on the actions of a few bad apples. Also, it's wrong to slam the shortcomings of others but ignore our own transgressions. So we have to work on this from both sides. Singaporeans have to show a generosity of spirit to one another, including to the new arrivals. And the new arrivals also have to make the effort to embrace our values, to commit themselves to Singapore, and to integrate into our community. We will welcome you into our midst, into our family, but you must make the effort too. There are success stories in integration. Many immigrants from the PRC serve in the grassroots or do charity work. Many Indian PRs volunteer as youth mentors in Sinda, help little kids to read, to have other activities outside school which are meaningful. I was told of one German PR married to a Singaporean who shops at Tekka Market, makes his own sambal, and loves durians. So I think he qualifies as an honorary Singaporean. But one story in particular caught my eye, and it's of a Vietnamese girl called Leha Tan Mai, who's here today. She came to Singapore when she was 15 years old. didn't speak English on a scholarship. She went to school, she had difficulty adjusting because of language, but also because school was taught differently here and in Vietnam. But she went on to Temasek JC, things improved. Her classmates welcomed her, helped her to integrate. By the time she went to SMU, she was so localized that if you didn't know her name, you wouldn't know she came from somewhere else. So her fellow students elected her to become the International Student Secretary of the SMU Students Association. And her job was to lead efforts to encourage other international students to integrate with the locals and to learn more about one another's cultures. So here she is. This is not quite our culture, but nevertheless, this is Lê Ha Tan Mai in the middle, jumping highest of all. So I read you what she wrote in reflection of her experience here. I feel as much a Singaporean as I am a Vietnamese. I have come to love the hawker food, the Singapore River that I jog along, the fireworks every National Day on the magnificent background of Singapore's skyline, the shopping malls a few streets down the road, the cinemas where I spend many nights watching movies, the schools I attend, and most importantly, the friendships I've made. The friendships I have made. So it's ultimately up to us how big-hearted we want to be. We may be a small island. We cannot be small-minded. We cannot just be a prosperous and successful country. We've also got to be a caring, a generous, a decent people. People who are gracious and warm towards one another as well as towards others. And that's the best way to ensure that tomorrow Singapore will have a bigger heart. Besides hope and heart, Singapore must always be our best home. A place where we feel that we belong, where we show our loyalty to our country, where we take pride in what we've achieved together and what we stand for. A home we love, which is a theme for this year's NDP. Families are a big part of what home means, because families are central to our sense of who we are. You're not the job you do, but you're papa or mama or daughter or granddaughter or cousins. These are the links which are the closest. Families give us the reason to defend and protect what we have. And when we say set up home, we mean settle down, have kids, bring up a family. And therefore, Singapore has to be a home where people want to get married, want to have children, want to bring up the next generation. But alas, we are having too few babies. I show you the TFR chart. This is replacement level, 2.1 total fertility rate, which means every woman produces 2.1 kids, replaces herself, her husband, and a little bit to spare. But if you look at what we actually have been able to do from 1975 onwards, we started off there, around 2.1, but the trend has been steadily down ever since, coming down to about 1.2 last year, and all the way down. There are ups and downs from year to year. The red years are 12 years apart. 76, 88, 00, and 12. But I cannot imagine the 12 being here. And therefore, we have a problem. The long-term trend is down, but we cannot give up. We've got to do something about it, and when people ask me, which many visitors do, what problems do you have in Singapore? I offer them this one as an example of one not easy to solve. And they give me their ideas, sometimes serious, sometimes not. One Asian politician said, "Why don't you have more blackouts?" He has blackouts he has high TFR doesn't mean I have blackouts, I will have high TFR. It's not so simple. More Singaporeans remain single or they're getting married earlier. Part of the reason is that we're working too long hours. And I'm saying this quite seriously. I think being connected 24/7 is marvelous, but having email round the clock is not an entirely good thing. Married couples are having fewer children. On average now, each married woman has 2 kids. Previously it was more, so this number has also been coming down. So they are replacing mom and dad, but they're not making up for those who are not marrying and having children. And 20-30+ % now are not marrying, not having children. So we have a problem. Many Singaporeans have explained their considerations and their concerns when to get married, when to have kids. And I talked to some of them. Recently I talked to one young lady, a teacher. She has 4 kids, young ones, from the age 14 to the age of 1. And she's gone back to work as a teacher. And she appreciates the schemes we have for working mothers, paid maternity leave, flexi work arrangements, and so on. But she says, but if I took all these schemes, then I'm pushing my load onto my colleagues, other teachers, and furthermore, when it comes assessment time, my head of department and my principal will not know what grade to give me. So even if you give me more of these leaves and perks, it will not help me with my career, which was important to her. So I asked her, what is the one thing that would encourage Singaporeans to have children? And she said, work-life balance. But then she added, but that is not in your power to give. She understands. We want work-life balance. We encourage people to have work-life balance. But finally, it's the attitudes of the employers, it's the attitudes of the individuals who are pursuing their careers. It's a social norm. Everybody is working, so I feel I have to work long hours too. And so we are stuck in that position. I talked to another young couple. They are volunteers in my branch. And when I have MPS, the husband is there till past midnight. They're newly married, moved into an HDB flat in Sengkang, not ready for children yet, even though the flat has already arrived. So I asked them, what are your considerations? I want to understand how you see these choices before you. What would help? The husband said, you should make childcare more accessible. You should offer more flexible work arrangements. The wife had a slightly different take, also very sensible. And she said, I don't want 6 months maternity leave. My boss may forget about me. But if you can have paternity leave and fathers can help to bring up the children, that would be helpful. So these are sensible views of young Singaporeans, and I'm sure they're shared by many other couples. So what more can we do? NPTD is studying this very carefully as part of the population issue. We are consulting widely, and we'll work out a package which we hope will be ready by the time our white paper is published around January. But meanwhile, tonight I'll just share with you some broad ideas which take in some of the views which we've received so far. And the idea is to address the issues which make a difference to the couples, either substantively or to point a signal that this is something which is important. Please think about it and please try to change our mindsets and our norms and behaviors. So first, work-life balance. I think we need to do more to promote flexible work arrangements, and we can help employers to go in this direction. We also have to improve work culture and employer attitudes so that you have certain new norms which are set. And maybe we should take seriously the idea of having 1 day a week when you close shop at 6 o'clock, and if you are seen in the office after that, that's a minus for promotion purposes. Housing. In other countries, you get married, you have kids, then eventually you save up, you buy a house. In Singapore, it's the other way around. House first, then you think about marriage, then you think about kids. I think now that housing is off the boil and we have built more flats, many more flats in the pipeline, I think that we should give some consideration to giving couples with young kids priority when they book HDB flats. Firstly, it will solve their problem faster. Secondly, it may encourage them to have a kid so that the flat will come faster. Thirdly, at birth, this question of leave. I think maternity leave at 16 weeks is about all right. You can make it longer, but employers have serious worries and we should take them seriously. And I think employees have worries too. But this idea of paternity leave in some form, either you give some to the husband or you make some of the maternity leave convertible. We've said no for a very long time, but I think it's time we change. To signal the importance of the father's role and your shared responsibility for raising the children. So please use the paternity leave for the purpose it is given. Thirdly, medical. One of the worries which couples have when they bring up a kid is what something is wrong and the medical expenses, how are we going to meet that? So one idea is we create a Medisave account for each kid when it's born, when he or she is born. And we put a small Hong Pao in for him to start life. And it can defray the childhood medical expenses and reassure the parents, no need to worry. And that part is seen too. Another thing we can do is preschool. I talked earlier about the steps we are going to do to raise standards, to make it affordable, to put a lot more resources in. I think that will be helpful. But other than preschool, there's also childcare and infant care. And we should give more financial support to low and middle income households for childcare and infant care. And as for the places where these are going to go, we need some in the housing estates near homes. I think we need some near workplaces, and we should help the operators who set up the centers in the housing estates or near the workplaces. And I hope that if one comes to a block of flats near you, you will welcome it even if you no longer have young children. Finally, we can always improve. The baby bonus is always welcome. We can look at that, but I don't think money is the point. It's ultimately not about money, it's about values, about deep motivations. Singaporeans will marry and have children because of the fulfillment that having a family brings. And the measures, as I said, are to address the practical problems and to point the direction, to signal the changes we would like to see in the mindsets. Beyond this specific packages, we need to create the right environment, the right social environment, the right ethos, so that Singaporeans want to settle down and have kids, and strengthen that sense that this is home, here is where we want to raise our families. Besides families, memories of places, of old friends, of events you've lived through, are also essential to keeping Singapore our best home. It's often the simple things in life which remind us most of home. I was reminded of this recently when I got another email from the public, a young lady called Thekla Low, who wrote to me to wish me Happy National Day. And she shared with me something which she had written, which I liked and I would like to share with you too. I quote a little bit of what she read, what she wrote. She said, "It's the simple things that I love about my country, like waking up on a Saturday morning, feeling the chill in the morning air, deciding to go downstairs to have a warm bowl of duck porridge instead of the usual cold cereal, having freshly dried freshly fried piping hot yo cha kueh with ice-cold soya milk on a whim. Mouth watering already. Having an elderly lady in a wheelchair pull up beside me, mistaking me for one of her kopi kakis and discussing the weather with me in Hokkien. Watching the Indonesian maid speak fluent Hokkien to her elderly, wheelchair-bound employer and showing genuine concern and care for the old lady. Reminding me of my grandmother and her Indonesian helper, whom I'm truly grateful for helping to take care of the needs of my grandmother in her last years. So it's the family, an extended family, and even the Indonesian maid is part of this extended family. Thekla remembers Singapore by the food, the people, most importantly, by the family. And so too with all of us and with me. Home, the house where you grew up, the family you grew up with, the times when you were young. And this picture, which I discovered recently and had not seen before, taken in May 1965, has all of that. 38 Oxley Road, parents, siblings, and also the dog. But over the years, more links form, more memories accumulate. So to me, home means other things as well. Memories of places. Places you've known over the years, for many years, which have changed. And when you see it, it's like playing a video replay. You scroll back in your mind's eye and you imagine it as it used to be. Nanyang Primary School. Today, handsome new buildings, young generation of excited students. When I went to kindergarten, this is what it looked like. And this is what I still imagine it to be. And here's the old school hall, the Li Tang, and our kindergarten was inside there. No computers, no complicated play equipment, just one class in each corner, cordoned off, and one piano. That was then. I drive down Orchard Road, swank shopping places, strange new buildings. This is Orchard Central. I think back to the old Orchard Road car park. The younger generation may not know, but once upon a time, this was where the best hawker food in town was to be found. The old wak has never been better. You go down Bras Basah Road, today SMU. Beautiful, gracious buildings, trees, students there, maybe with boyfriends and girlfriends studying. Reflecting pools, modern Singapore. But I think back when I was a student, the SJI school field. I wasn't SJI, but Catholic High next door had no school field, so we borrowed this one. Sports day, band, marching, practicing, this is where we went. These were the haunts where we grew up. Marina Bay. Today, a special skyline. Recognized the world over. But when I see it, I wind back to this. It wasn't even land, it was sea. Collier Quay, and you go out. I used to take a boat and go out, and we go past this long, you see this thing here? It was a breakwater. If you're old enough, you will remember. And you go past the breakwater, which protected the harbor out to Southern Island, St. John's Island, where I would go with my parents. My father was visiting political detainees. That's then. And today it's become an icon like this. And it's not complete, because we will continue to build and improve, and in 5-10 years' time, you'll have something even better. So places add another layer of home. People are part of home. You meet old friends, old comrades, people you served with in the SAF. Happens to me not infrequently. Served together years ago, and you come across them, and it's always heartwarming when they say to you, "Evening, sir, I'm your soldier, we served together." And recently it happened to me. I was going around the tables at an iftar and Tek Gi, and The Malay gentleman stood up and said, "Hello, I'm Omar." And I looked at him and my mind went back 40 years. 1975, Taman Jurong Camp, Corporal Omar, my vehicle electrician. 40 years had passed, he's happy, he's well, he's here, we rejoiced. We were both so happy I took this picture of us together on the iPhone. His son is now a cardiologist, so his story is like Mr. Topi Singh's. When you're overseas, you get a warm feeling when citizens greet you. People come up and say, "Hello, Mr. Lee, I'm from Singapore too." Happened to me recently. I and my wife were on holiday in Dalat, Vietnam, last December. We were quietly having breakfast in the restaurant. Two young ladies came over to ask me to take a picture with them. So we did. And she said, "Well, I'm from Teck Ghee Primary School. I'm one of the teachers there." You can see my breakfast is still here. I came out from breakfast. There was a group of Singaporeans there. 李先生拍照，我们是红帽桥来的。They are proud to be Singaporean. Sorry, please, Mr. Lee, take a picture. We are from Ang Mo Kio too, extended family on a trip. They are proud to be Singaporean, and they make me feel proud to be Singaporean. Events are part of home. You remember, I remember 9th of August, 1965, when it happened, 1966, our first parade. Nothing to march with except some national flags and colored flags. And then more variety, more equipment, helicopters, the national anthem. And you especially remember the moments when the flag flies past and you sing Majulah Singapura. The helicopter changes from UH, 1H, it went to the Super Puma, and now we have a Chinook. We're now on a floating platform. But when you sing Majulah Singapura, the pride and the emotion are the same. So all of us have our own memories and stories to tell, and therefore the Singapore Memories Project, 300,000 so far, still collecting. I've shared many people's memories today. Topi Singh and his family, giving his children the education he himself never had. Chung Win Ki, discovering a whole new world online and improving his chicken rice recipe along the way. Madam Chang Ka Fong, 87 years young, still playing basketball daily. Iskandar Jalil, creating beautiful pottery displayed all over the world. I've also shared with you about younger ones, their lives ahead of them, who will write the next chapter of our story and build their own treasure house of memories. Joshua Chu and the Extractor X team, making new breakthroughs to transform our lives. Jauhari and Adil Hakim, inspiring young Singaporeans to do their best. Praveen and his teachers, preparing for a brave new world. Tekla, discovering new things to love about Singapore. Alfred and Natalie, graduating from UNISIM, raising Zhixuan to be a proud and patriotic Singaporean. These memories come together to define the Singapore story for all of us. Individually, these are our life experiences. Collectively, these bind together to become the soul of the nation. We must cherish them and build upon them. In our shared future, the world may be completely different. Our lives may be quite transformed, but our drive to keep the Singapore story vital and fresh for all of us must never falter. Let's work together to create a better Singapore, where we look to our shared future with confidence and hope, where we treat one another and others too with a big heart, where we build for our children and grandchildren our best home. Good night.